Hello and welcome back to Left Seat Culture. My name is Dale. This video is actually one that I uploaded back in July 2023 to my old Spectrum Geeks channel. This video is all about how much it cost me back then to get my PPL license. So obviously costs might have changed a little bit, but gives you a rough idea of what to expect and covers kind of some of my tips and then the breakdown of each individual cost from starting to ending up with my private pilot's license here in the UK. Okay, so before we get into the actual individual costs, I will just say a couple of things based on my experience. And again, this is in some of my other videos. One of the most important things is obviously finding a good flight school that you can learn from that meets your kind of expectations, and the instructor is someone you feel that you can kind of gel with and get on with. A lot of stuff I read on the forums where people have struggled to progress in their flight training tends to be due to a kind of personality mismatch of some sort between the student and the instructor. Remember, you are the customer and you're paying for a service, and if it's not working well for you, don't be afraid to step away and try somewhere else. Go have another kind of flight experience with another school and see if you may have a better relationship there. And perhaps even another instructor at the same school. I know it's a bit difficult, but remember, you read some of these stories where, and again, it can be because you're struggling to progress, but some people have done like 40 hours and still haven't gone solo. And unless you're really struggling and perhaps flying isn't for you, there's probably some issue between the student and the instructor. And then the second thing is, don't pay for all of your instructor fees up front. I've seen that with many schools when I was doing my research. They will say, hey, it's going to cost you this much to get your license based on completing it in 45 hours, and you pay that up front. Obviously, even if it's a very established school, my recommendation is you don't pay up front, because these kind of things are volatile. If that flight school goes out of business, you've got a lot of money that's now disappeared with them as well. With my particular flight school, you paid as you go. They did have an introductory offer where you could buy like 5 hours up front, which had a slight discount. I think it was about 23%, something like that, which I did do because I was willing to lose. It's not willing, is it? I was happy that worst case I would lose around £1,200 or something, as opposed to sinking all the money in. So that's my kind of initial tips to kind of thinking about doing the flying. And then after you've done your kind of initial flight experience and you've decided that flying is for you, it's not making you sick and nauseous, then my other recommendation is you do your medical first before you get too far down the line, because you may have an unknown issue that you need to get rectified, or you may have something that is going to impact you in getting your class 2 medical to be a general aviation pilot. So I covered that in my video a while ago when I had my medical, so I just thought that's my kind of tips. So let's start off with the costs. So I've broken this down into different sections and I have the total right at the end. So first thing I've put down is equipment. So when you learn to become a pilot, you're going to need certain things. Some, of course, you can borrow from the school, like a headset. Most schools will have a headset, but they will encourage you to get your own after a while. Again, there's another video on that. I bought a second-hand, I think it's about 10 years old, Bose X headset, and that's been absolutely fine. Worked all the way through my training until I recently treated myself to the Bose A20 when I passed. But again, that helps reduce some of the costs. You're also going to need charts, logbooks, checklists, knee board, probably a bag to put all the things in, luminous jacket, some different pens, rulers, protractory stuff. Basically all the basic flight components that you're going to need to kind of get you through all of your training. You don't need that all in one go. So I actually waited I think probably about a month into my training. I waited till some of the sales came on and then purchased all of my gear that way. So in terms of equipment, I spent £601.57 on equipment. So again, bags, rulers, little flight calculators, everything I needed basically to transport all my stuff around, have headsets, everything I needed to do flight training, planning and everything like that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Next thing, as I mentioned before, is a medical. So you're going to need a class 2 medical to be able to be a pilot, and most schools are going to require that. I think it may even be a CAA requirement that you have your Class 2 medical before you can do your solo. So within the first 10 hours, again, I recommend that you get your medical so you don't sink too much money, and if you've got a health issue that's going to stop you. Again, these costs are going to vary, but for me, the medical, it cost me £191, and until the age of 50 you have your medical every 2 years, so that's a reoccurring cost. So far we spent £601, 57 pence on equipment and £191 on the medical. Now, as you go through your flight training here in the UK, the CAA require you to pass 9 ground school exams. So obviously in order to prepare for that, you're going to need some ground school training. So I've covered this in my other videos. I did a few things, and something you can probably see behind me. I bought the Poolies books. I bought those second hand to save a bit of money, and I also then went on and used Easy PPL Ground School for the majority of all my training for all of my exams, which I passed first time. And then I also did some radio course online over Zoom with a chap called Irv Lee, and again I'll put some of these things down in the description. But in terms of ground school, I spent a total of £343 and 38 pence on ground school. Now that doesn't include the exams, that's just the training and preparation to be ready to take the exams. Then obviously there's 9 exams. Each of those exams is £35. As mentioned, I passed each one first time. Obviously if you have to retake them, then obviously you have to reoccur another £35. And also you can only fail the exams, I think it's a maximum of 4 times. So what that means is if you kind of fail the 4th time, it resets all of your ground school training back to 0. Even if you'd kind of passed 8 and on the last one you failed it, and on the 4th time it resets you back. So make sure you are ready before you do those ground school exams, because it's going to be costly and probably very much demotivating. So for those exams, £315 were spent on actually taking the exams themselves. So far we've got equipment £601.57, we've got the ground school £343.38, we've got the medical £191, and the ground school exams of £315. Then also at some point during your training, I did it at the end actually after my skills test, you will be required to do your radio exam, and this is so you can get your FRTOL license, so you can operate the radio in the aircraft after you've passed. Again, prices may vary, but the cost for me was £125 to do that exam. Again, I passed that the first time, so I had to incur that cost once, so that's another fee there. And then when you actually come to do your skills test, at the end there's a cost obviously for you to hire the plane for the duration of the hours, along with the examiner fee. And my skills test cost me £673 and 95 pence. And then when you actually pass your training and you send off your paperwork to the CAA to get your license, you have to pay for that as well. I do recommend that you can save a little bit of money by only applying for your license at the same time as sending off your FRTOL exam paperwork as well, because otherwise there's 2 admin fees. So again, I sent off my CAA paperwork and my FRTOL paperwork, and that cost me £240. I can't remember if it was £40 or £20, but something around that was just the cost to send it back by courier, because I guess the CAA like to charge you extra money for that. So that's all the costs we've got so far, and then obviously we're going to get into the big chunk, which is the lesson. So just to sum up where we are, we've bought our equipment, £601.57. We've done our medical, which was £191. We've done our ground school at £343 and 38 pence. We've done our ground school exams at £315. We've done our radio exam at £125. We've done our skills test exam at £673 and 95 pence. And then we've paid our license fee as well of £240. So finally, how much did all of the actual flight training cost? So this is the costs including hiring the plane, paying for the instructor, and any landings throughout that duration. As mentioned in another video, in terms of my flight time up to this, I did 55 hours and 5 minutes and 113 landings. So that's kind of what this is all encapsulated in, along with obviously the instructor fee. So my fee, which was covered over 46 lessons, I paid £12,441 and a penny. So if we add all of those costs together, basically the total cost for me from nothing to getting my license cost me £14,930 and 91 pence. One thing I will mention is my training costs actually went up about halfway through. Originally the lessons were £202 and 25 pence, which included one local landing, and with things happening in the economy, fuel prices going up, that actually increased by £33 and 95 pence to £236 and 20 pence, including one landing in terms of per hour per lesson. And I should also mention that I was learning throughout in a Cessna 172, so if you have a larger or smaller plane, that will have a variance on obviously how much it costs for the flight hire and everything, or the flight fueling costs and everything. So that's it. Actually the cost is pretty close. I was estimating it cost me about £13,000 based on my research to get my license, and when you think of the fact that the lessons were £12,441 and a penny, that is pretty close, because I didn't really factor in the equipment. I didn't appreciate all the ground school exams, everything that had to be done. So actually all in all, things are pretty close to what I estimated. Obviously still a big chunk of money. I didn't have £15,000 all in one go to get my license. The way I actually did it is, over time I've been putting away a little bit of money as I could, and when I got to about £6,000 saved up, that's when I went for my introductory flight, figuring that obviously if I'd like it, based on assuming it's going to be costing me £202 and 25 pence an hour, I could be continuing to save money as we went through. And again, I started in November 2021, I think it was, and then I got my license, or completed my testing, completed my skills test on the 16th of May and did my FRTOL exam on the 25th of May. So over that time period is obviously how I was slowly chunking away at flying. And there was actually one point where I'd almost run out of money and just had to wait and sold a few things to kind of get about another, I think, £4,000 back into a fund over the coming weeks to enable me to get to a point where I could complete the training, obviously become a pilot, which is fantastic. So I hope this helps. If you're thinking about getting a pilot's license and doing that, this is what it costs roughly here in the UK. Obviously, if you can save a bit of money by learning in like a Cessna 152, that will save you a little bit, perhaps 30 quid an hour, 20 quid an hour, something like that. Obviously, if you are more proficient and you can make progress quicker, obviously 45 hours is the minimum, so there's a 10-hour saving that potentially you can make over me. Or again, it might take you longer, 60 hours, 70 hours, something like that. But at least you can kind of take that number, roughly boil it down to what an hourly rate might be over the time, and then give you some idea of how much it might cost you to get your private pilot's license here in the UK. So thanks very much for watching. I hope this breakdown was helpful, gives you some insight into how much it might cost to get your PPL here in the UK. Perhaps you've got it already and your cost was different. Perhaps it cost you more, perhaps you got it cheaper. I'd really love to hear from you, both down in the comments section. I read them all and we'll come back to you, but also consider joining the Left Seat Culture Discord group. It's absolutely free, and join a small but growing community of fellow aviation enthusiasts. Also consider following on Instagram as well. Thank you very much for watching. If I'm really lucky, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye for now. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Be much appreciated.